Okay, hello. So I'm just going to do a quick review on a really, really good book today. It's called Unnatural Causes by Dr. Richard Shepherd. Came out, I think, 2017, 2018. So there's probably a fair few reviews already on YouTube. But this channel is kind of mainly about personal development and kind of how sort of things we can learn from books relevant to personal development, basically. And this is really, really good. It gets really, really good reviews, and it lives up to them completely as far as I'm concerned. It's probably a little bit of a depressing one, so with everything that's going on at the minute with the coronavirus, maybe, unless you've got a stomach for that sort of thing, you might find it a little bit depressing. It's a lot about death, obviously. He's a forensic pathologist who has basically been involved in some of the worst disasters over the last sort of 30 years. He is said to have, for want of a better phrase, cut open and investigated sort of over 23,000 bodies in his career. So, and he opens the book flying over the M4, because he tells you later on in the book that he got into flying through his connections with the police, because the police have a flying club. And he opens with that, and he talks about, he's in his 60s at the time, he talks about feeling sick in his stomach and not really understanding what's going on, and he realises it's because he's flying over Hungerford. And in 1987, when the Hungerford massacre happened, he'd only just sort of really qualified as a forensic pathologist. It was one of his first, it was very early on in his career, and he had to go there and attend, and he talks about the people that he saw, the old man dead in the road who was out cutting his grass, cars smashed up. It was basically this guy who went around and shot about 15 people and then shot himself. So it was a really, really bad one, and he was involved with it. And he basically talks about his PTSD from that. So he goes through the book, and he's involved with Diana, he's involved with 7/7, 9/11, the Marchioness disaster on the Thames, where two boats collided and about 50 odd people were killed. I think there were 150 people on board, about 50 were killed. So all these terrible things that he's been involved with as a forensic pathologist, basically. And it just seems like this really interesting but really difficult kind of career that he's had. And like I say, towards the end of the book, he starts to sort of explain why he should have sort of had counselling every year, really, in hindsight. I think at the time he just thought he was cut out for the job. Well, he was cut out for the job, clearly. He was very, very good at it, but I think it's a really important message, particularly when it comes to sort of personal development, of how important your mental health is and looking after your mental health. And he's obviously had a really successful career, but he ends up breaking up with his wife. His wife, obviously, they were under a lot of pressure because his wife used to, she trained to become a doctor quite late on in life, basically, so that put a lot of pressure on them, and things just went wrong between them. They had a couple of kids as well, so that was another sad part of the book. But just really important, I think, from a personal development point of view, that you sort of think about balance. And it's all very well putting everything into your career and wanting to be successful in that way, but if you put everything into one area, then you're likely to mess up another area. So, you put everything into your job and into your career, then how are you supposed to have a successful relationship and sort of personal life? So it's about having that balance. And I've said that before in these reviews, that some people are so single-minded they will just go for something, and quite often the richest people have been very single-minded in terms of their pursuit of money and that type of success, and that's why they've achieved it. But you kind of have to ask yourself, what do you actually want from life? You might want to be rich and wealthy, but do you need so much money that everything else just kind of goes wrong? It's success, really, to me, is having the right kind of balance and sort of feeling healthy mentally as well as physically, and just trying to get the balance right. And it's obviously very difficult to get that absolutely perfect, but I think it's just important that we kind of learn from this sort of book, really. So in a nutshell, he was hugely successful, really interesting career, really interesting life, amazing book that he's written. And in the audible version, he narrates it as well, and he's got a really good voice. It's really nice to have the actual author narrating as well. Makes it feel a lot more personal. But yeah, just some amazing stories in there, the things that he's done. He specialised in knife crime in the end, so he talks about when he's cooking a roast at home, he talks about stabbing the beef and kind of trying to work out sort of exit wounds and things like that. And he really wants to kind of move things on in terms of how a knife going into the body can tell its story of the angle it went in and the struggle that went on. And it's really interesting, it gets into real detail, but it is quite gruesome. He talks a lot, obviously, about dead bodies and the instruments that he uses and stuff like that. So it is quite morbid. So you do have to be that sort of not a morbid sort of person, but the sort of person who enjoys listening to that. And I haven't actually read that many or listened to that many medical kind of non-fiction books. I read This Is Gonna Hurt by Adam Kay. That's fantastic. It's kind of comedy but dark in the sense that it's kind of basically quite doom and gloom about the NHS and the way doctors are treated. Then his sequel, I can't remember the name of that now. I've reviewed that one on YouTube. The Night Shift Before Christmas. That's the one that's quite short, but it's really, really good. So I reviewed that as well. Again, really funny, but quite dark, really quite depressing in lots of ways. These medical ones do seem to be quite depressing. Then there's War Doctor, David Knott. I reviewed that one as well. I read that last year, or was it the beginning of this year? It might be the beginning of this year, actually. And that's really, really good as well. That's about this doctor that just spends so much of his time abroad in war zones and treating people. And I think that's why I come from quite a medical family, and I think I just find it quite fascinating, really, that anyone really who chooses to sort of take huge risks with their, I suppose, physical safety in the terms of David Knott, but their sort of mental health in the terms of, in the case of Dr. Richard Shepherd in this book, they put everything on the line. They're completely dedicated to what they do. They make a huge positive difference, but there's often a really big cost at the end of it as well. So it's just really interesting to look at that and sort of take that on board, really. There's loads more I can say about this book, but I don't like to give too many sort of spoilers, really. I've told you the sort of things that he's involved with, but you've really got to read the book or listen to it to appreciate the finer details, and it's really nicely written as well. The opening scene particularly is really nicely written. He gives lots of quotes from Alexander Pope as well, which are really, really good. His dad always used to quote Alexander Pope to him and stuff, so he kind of he uses that throughout the book as well. But some of the writing is really nice, some of the description when he's flying, but the whole time the description and stuff is good, and it's reasonably funny in places as well. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's pretty self-critical, but it's obviously a dark subject. It's a dark sort of career, a dark job. But it's very, very, very interesting, and the fact that he talks about PTSD as well, I think, is really important. That's something that gets overlooked, I think, in society, and something that we need to kind of work on a bit more, really. But yeah, what else can I say about it? It's just a really good book. It lives up to the reviews for sure. I would say it's a 5-star book, definitely. So give it a go.